present is the cure to anxiety. So obviously, I'm going to be talking about anxiety. And I like to just start off by telling you guys my history with anxiety because I don't tell a lot of people about this. But in high school, I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder by my doctor when I kept telling him about how hard it was for me to just sleep at night because I always have these thoughts. And often these thoughts would just be a lot of me worrying about the future, and it'd be like anything. It could be what I wanted to do in the future, my career is going to be, where I was going to go to college, or it could be like the smallest, most mundane thing, like what I want to eat tomorrow morning, or like where I want to go tomorrow. And these thoughts would just keep me up at night because I'm naturally inclined to look for answers. I'm always someone who seeks answers. And when I don't get the answer, I can't be at peace. Which is why I know a lot of facts actually, because if I don't know how something works, I'll Google it and I'll find out how it works. But anyways, yeah, and once I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder, I began to notice all these patterns of me constantly thinking about the future, constantly zoning out and worrying about the future. And sometimes it could be something really common. It could be, like me just worrying about the upcoming exam, even though I've taken hundreds of tests in my life, and yet I'm worried about the next exam. And I got this realization one day that helped me so much throughout high school. And it all happened at one point where I asked myself, what is this worrying going to do for me? Right? Sure, this upcoming test is going to be really hard and I don't want to screw up, but what is this worrying going to do for me? Is it going to do me any good? And 99% of the time, it's no. It's not going to bring you any good. And this applied to other circumstances too, but I'm just using this as an example. Didn't bring me any good. So I told myself, I'll spend this energy not worrying, not stressing. Instead, I'll spend the energy on actually reducing the odds of me failing the next test. I'll do something that's more beneficial to me. I'll study for the tests, And even if it was like a bad test and I got my results back and it wasn't something that I liked, instead of stressing about it, I always ask myself, I got into the habit of asking myself, yeah, I didn't get what I want, but what did I do and what could have I done better? And I adopted this mindset throughout my last 2 years of high school, and it's proved to be really beneficial. My grades were going up, and this even applied to other circumstances too, like in video games. I found myself improving a lot. When I stopped wasting my energy, when I stopped feeding it into negative emotions over things that were simply out of my control. For example, someone else plays bad and it causes me to lose. I reflect and I say, well, I did what I could, and sure, I could have done some things better, but the main issues were out of my control. And I move on and I learn. And that mindset has brought me so far in life. And I thought I was done. I thought I've mastered it all. I thought stress, anxiety, it's never gonna happen again. And recently, over the summer, I went through a really tough breakup. And it just sucked. It just sucked, right? And it felt like I just reverted back to my old self again because I just spent weeks just not being able to eat, not being able to sleep, and just not being able to be happy. Like I'd be around all these people, all my friends who, used to make me laugh and whatnot, and I just zone out and I just can't even genuinely be happy. And it just sucked because it felt like I lost myself, hyper fixated on just negative emotions. And that habit I adopted of reflection went overboard throughout those weeks, because that habit it's actually a good habit for 90% situation, but for that 10%, this is where it happened, because I started constantly reflecting on myself and what I did in that relationship. And I just started pointing out flaws in myself and my actions when in hindsight they weren't really my fault, and reasonably blame myself for what I did. And I don't want to get too deep into that situation, but I learned that people change and feelings change. And sometimes it's not even your fault. Sometimes bad things will happen to you and it's genuinely out of your control. And that was something really hard for me to accept, because I've always adopted this mindset where if I had a bad score, that was my fault. I had bad performance, that was my fault. I couldn't do this, that was my fault. And it sounds bad looking at it now, like it's just so harsh on myself, but this pressure is what built up a lot of the success I've had in life. So that's why it became a second habit for me to like just reflect my fault, how can I work on it? And when such a traumatic event happens that I just went overdrive, I kept, and the difference with the anxiety now compared to last time was, instead of me worrying about the future, I was hyper fixated on the past. I was constantly worried about what I should have done, what I shouldn't have done, and just how happy I was and how I missed those moments. But once I realized that people change and feelings change, and it honestly has nothing to do with you, it gave me a sense of peace that there's nothing I could do from here on out to bring that back, because the past is the past. It's already gone. But even after this realization, I struggled to be happy because I constantly miss those moments. And the next big revelation happened on my last day of my internship. Me and everyone else in the office went out. We went to eat barbecue. And I just remember sitting there with like 6 other drunk men just joking around. Like, yeah, we all have our differences. Everyone has their different backgrounds, political beliefs, but we could all just sit here at this table and just laugh about anything and everything. And the way the sun was just shining that afternoon, I couldn't help but just sit there and smile. It was, although this has been the worst summer of my life, that moment made me realize that there was just so much more to life, and that life is so beautiful. Like, yeah, I was happier in the past, and yeah, things aren't going to be like this forever, but right now I'm able to sit here and just smile. And when I was able to do that, all my anxiety just disappeared. When I realized that I can just see with my eyes how beautiful life is. I don't have to worry about the past. I don't have to worry about what tomorrow brings. I can just be happy that right now it's happening. And I began to notice this a lot more when I be running along the waters and I just look at how the sun reflects on the waters. I just thought like, wow, life is just so amazing. And I'd come home and I see my dog wagging his tail, although he does this every time, but I come home and he's wagging his tail left and right, excited to see me, and my niece comes in and gives me a big hug. And that's when I can just sit there and enjoy the moment. I stopped worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. I stopped worrying about what I did. Instead, I could just smile and be grateful for what I have now. Because life is so short, and these moments go by fast. And it's so corny, but the present is really a gift. It's a gift that's very short. You have to enjoy the present because that's the only time you could never enjoy it. Because the present is going to leave tomorrow. It's going to leave the next moment. So instead of being sad or worrying, we should just live now. And life becomes so much more fulfilling, so much more beautiful. And I just feel like that's the right way to live life. Last thing I want to say is if you stuck out with me throughout this whole video, I just want to say thank you. And I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. And if you have any recommendations on what I should talk about next time, that'd be great too. So I'll catch y'all in the next video.